Yeah, so we'll start when I was 17. I had my second concussion, which was the first was from football when I was about 15. That took about 5 weeks for me to get back from. That was not a big deal. Second one at 17 really knocked me out for a good 5 months before I was back to performing. I was a state swimmer in high school, and it really took me some time to get back to that level where I was not getting dizzy doing flip turns, and I felt like I could actually hold my breath long enough to perform at optimal level. Actually, my coach, when I came back that season, she was like, "Did you start smoking like cigarettes?" She was like, "Because you're a lot worse." And I was like, "No, I had a concussion." But yeah, no. So basically, kind of started there, and for those 5 months where I couldn't really do much for physical activity, someone along the way recommended yoga, and this is back in 2011, where it was not very popular for men to do yoga. And I started going to these classes. I was usually the only guy there, if not maybe one other guy. Um, Usually got some looks because, again, back then it was not commonplace for especially a young guy to be in a yoga class. But really fell in love with the practice, and as a very yang individual, I found that to really bring balance to my life. And along the way, I did that for a couple of years, and I was the first one to join the UNH Yoga Club as a guy.
Mm.
University of New Hampshire was where I went for my first 2 years of school. And we had a guest teacher come in every month, and one of those teachers was a lady from India who taught and studied meditation. She was a little old lady, she must have been 60s, 70s. And I remember she had this poster up, and she said, "This is what the soul looks like." And it was basically, actually have the poster somewhere around here, and it's basically like a red drawing, and it just gets lighter from red and goes red and then becomes a white in the center. And so we meditated looking at that poster, and she led us through a guided meditation. And at this time, this was the time that I was very interested in cannabis. And for me, it was like, oh my God, I'm getting high without smoking. This is the coolest thing ever. This is blowing my mind. And it helped ease a lot of those concussion symptoms, like the memory issues I had, the sensitivity to light, some of my headaches. And so it was just a whole paradigm shift that my brain can work in a way I had no idea it could without the use of any sort of substances.
Mm.
And so that was a bunch of light bulbs started going off at that point. I'd taken psychology in high school, and that kind of got me interested as well. And then at that point, I decided to start really focusing on neuroscience. So I took some neuroscience, psychology classes, nutrition classes, just wanting to learn more about this whole human system that we have going on. Because again, at that point, I was like, there's something else that we have not been taught and I have not learned. So I just started taking all the health class I could relating to human health, nutrition, psychology. And somewhere along the lines, my sophomore year, I took what was called ecogastronomy, which is basically the study of the food and food systems,
Mm.
and learning about the devastation that is happening in our food systems. And so at that point, I knew I was originally in the Air Force ROTC my first semester at University of New Hampshire. I'd been an on-call firefighter in my hometown for about 3 years. And I've always known I wanted to help people, but just didn't know what the direction was. And then after doing this eco-gastronomy course, I was like, all right, our food system needs help. I don't know how to help it. I want to figure this out. So I
Mm.
ended up transferring to UMass Amherst and with a major of sustainable food and farming. And honestly, part of that was just because I didn't have the grades to get into any other schools. And I talked to the advisor. He seemed like a great guy. And I got admitted. And little did I know that that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because my first semester at UNH, when I had mono and I had bruised my spine and had a bunch of other injuries, in addition to the concussion, I was a mess for my first semester at college, and my grades suffered. So yeah, so my grades had suffered, and I ended up getting admitted to the Stockbridge School of Agriculture at UMass Amherst, and that really just opened up the can of worms. And at that point, I was 20 years old, 21. I'm 26 now, and that's when I really started diving in. So I kind of dabbled in a lot of health stuff before, but it was then at UMass Amherst that things just unfolded in a way that I never could have imagined. So I started taking all these food systems courses, these anything about food, herbalism, mycology, study of mushrooms. I took some personal health and wellness classes, some what we called yoga for farmers, things like that, keeping your body fit with an active lifestyle. Um, and UMass Amherst has the #1 food in the country. So I was eating a lot of really good food, and they have a beautiful campus. They have an agricultural learning center, which some of our classes we would experiment. We raise chickens, free range chickens. We raise a bunch of different vegetables and crops and herbs and all that. We inoculated logs to grow mushrooms, and really just diving into this whole world of we really can grow our own food, where you go to a grocery store, you shop around, you put it in your cart, you have no idea where it comes from, you have no idea what is really in your foods. Half time on a cereal box, you can't pronounce half the ingredients. And so it just really opened my mind to noticing that there's a whole very important part of our education that we have neglected, and that is our health and our food. So I started working on some organic farms, one out in Sacramento, or like an hour or so east of Sacramento. Um, and they were a basil farm, organic basil farm. They had sheep, chickens, and all that. So I lived out there for a few weeks my junior year of college during winter break. And then after I graduated, I traveled a bunch, went to San Diego with my family, went to Mexico to visit a friend, and then eventually went to Asia in early 2017. It was one of my best friends from my sustainable food and farming class. His name was Mithra. He is Sri Lankan, and his family lived in Sri Lanka still. So I went with him for a number of months and learned about their food systems there. And I was the only white guy, the only American, the only person with blue eyes, the only person 6 feet tall. I stood out like a sore thumb, and it was a very humbling experience, as most white males are never feeling like a minority in daily life here. And it really, people would stop and stare at me in the streets. They would point, they would gawk, they would ask my friend, why is he here? What is he? Like, they would ask any question you can imagine, because again, I was in a non-touristy part. We were working on his farm. So most of these people never seen an American, let alone a white guy before. So that really put my life into perspective and made me really appreciate how great things are for me here and back home, that these people were so accepting of me. They were so loving. We couldn't speak a common language, but we still communicated through actions and through just anything, like pointing at things, through giving gifts, through hugging, through just nonverbal communication, which was incredible. And then working at the school there with some of the kids, I was able to connect with a lot of kids, and we really taught each other our languages. So I would point at a stick. I would ask, how do you say that in their language? They'd say it. I'd say it in my language. And we just go around pointing at things and saying things in our language. At the end of the few months, we both had some fairly decent phrases that we could say. And it was a really cool way of almost being a child again, where I was pointing at things and having almost like a parental figure say, that's how you say this. But it was a child teaching me. And so we were teaching each other. And so after I got back from Asia, I went to Thailand after that, did a meditation retreat for a while, traveled around, went to Malaysia, Philippines as well. Then coming back, it was kind of a tough transition after being gone for about 4.5 months. And I remember distinctly when I landed in JFK airport, just hearing English again as the primary language, which I hadn't heard in months. Usually it was all these different languages in Asia. And the one thing I noticed was everyone was complaining. Everyone's at the airport is just complaining and bickering, and it's all the most minuscule details, like, oh, my plane was 15 minutes late. It's like all these things that I was like, you people have no idea what other people are dealing with the other side of the world, that these people are struggling to put food on the table, and we're complaining about our airplane being 15 minutes late. So again, another perspective shift for me that just made me really grateful for the life I do have. And along this way, I taught some introduction to meditation classes and some basic nutrition classes to kids. I worked at some schools. And then I stumbled upon, well, back in 2012, I started following Elliot Hulse, and he was a big impact on my life. I never met him in person, but I started studying his work. And he'd always talked about this Paul Chek guy, this Paul Chek guy, this Paul Chek guy. And eventually I was like, all right, I got to check out this Paul Check guy, because now that I've heard Elliot say it a million times and he's a mentor of mine, I got to learn from his mentor. So eventually I started reading Paul's How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy book. I started watching his YouTube videos. And while I noticed Elliot had much more of attention grabbing videos, Paul's material was very powerful. And I couldn't deny that. I got drawn in. So I started studying Paul some more. I stumbled upon Troy Casey, certified health nut, and started just studying all these people, reading more books, listening to podcasts. And over the course of the past 9 or so years from that concussion, it's just really just been a self-discovery journey, a self-healing journey, and just always trying to learn more about myself and then share that information with anyone who's willing to listen or anyone who's looking to make a change. And so in 2018, I decided it was time to get things rock and roll. And I lived in Los Angeles for about 10 months. I was working in the medical device industry from January 2018 until September. And I was with a small startup company, and it didn't quite start up. So I moved back to my home in Boston with my family with about $10,000 in credit card debt from trying to get going with that startup company. I really gave it my all and really bet on it, and it should have worked out, but there was just some internal drama within the company that was really out of my control within the upper management. There's only 11 of us in the company, but it was, I mean, that plague can spread pretty quickly. So at that point, when I returned, I decided, and this is something I'd known for a while and was just too fearful to implement, was that I need to start my own business. I need to be completely in control of my own destiny. I need to be helping people the way that I have the gifts to, and not trying to do it in a way that is, again, like through the medical device industry, I was doing pretty well at the sales and marketing, and I was enjoying talking to all these top level doctors and all these specialists, but it was closer than what I'd done before, but it wasn't exactly what I feel called to do. So in 2018, September now, I started my Whole Health Connections business, which at the time was a referral company, as I've worked with a lot of nutritionists, acupuncturists, massage therapists, hypnotherapists in the area since my concussion when I was 17. So I've really known a lot of the best in the south of Boston, the South Shore area of Boston. And so people would always ask me, like, oh, where should I go for this? Where should I go for that? And eventually I just said, you know what, I'm going to make a business out of it. So it started there. But very quickly after a few months, I realized this is not a very scalable business model. This is not a very time efficient model. This is not as fulfilling as I hoped it to be. And that's where I then I decided, all right, I'm going to learn Reiki. I've had a Reiki done to me. And I decided, all right, you know, I'm going to become a practitioner so I can heal myself and I can help other people in that way. And around that same time, I took the Holistic Lifestyle Coaching Level 1 online through the Czech Institute. And then about 6 months later, or a few months later, I took the Level 2 Reiki. And then I came back and did the Level 2 in San Diego, California back in April, where we met. And that was a life-changing week, to say the least. A lot of my limiting beliefs were exposed of what I thought I could or could not do. A lot of the hesitations I had around what I was capable of or what I perceived as my lack of knowledge were quickly diminished from that week in the training with the HLC2 group. And it really just showed me I'm in the right place. This is where I belong. This is where I can really make an impact, is by coaching people. And I still love doing classes and live events. I love speaking at events. But the coaching and the connecting is really where I get the most fulfillment, is seeing those aha moments in people, seeing those thank yous, those I didn't know I could do this moments within people. And so essentially what it really came down to was I need to be able to help people at the best level I can. And so I partnered up with a few nutrition organic superfood companies, one being my friend Alex Dorr. He's from Western Mass. So we actually had some class together. We took my college together, and so he has Mushroom Revival. They're a bunch of organic superfood mushrooms, and I've seen great benefits with that because a lot of people can't afford coaching. And I found that sometimes all they need is a little something to take the edge off, or the people that are already very healthy, but they just need that little extra boost, and they don't need a whole coaching package, but they just need a little nutritional bonus to kind of bring them to the next level. And so I partnered with them and then a group called Purium, and they have a bunch of superfoods as well. So I've really found that between the coaching and the superfoods, it's a pretty good dynamic duo to help people improve their overall health, happiness, reduce stress. And right now I'm just focused on helping people reduce their stress, improve their sleep, and increase their energy. And because I feel like those are areas in my life that I have quite a bit of knowledge and experience with, especially after the concussion where my sleep was all off and my stress levels were through the roof and my energy was low. So I've really done a lot of deep work in that area. So that's really where I'm focused on now, is helping people reduce stress, improve sleep, increase energy to live a happier, healthier, more sustainable life.